I ducked under the awning of the Sapphire Lounge, shaking water from my jacket as Thursday night traffic splashed through puddles behind me. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since I'd walked out of Ryan's apartment for the last time, and I was finally starting to breathe again. Tonight was supposed to be a quiet celebration. Just me, a decent cocktail, and the knowledge that Monday morning I had an interview with Crawford Design Agency. Real work. The kind I'd dreamed about since graduating 3 years ago, before everything with Ryan had slowly consumed my ambitions, along with my confidence. The bar's interior glowed warm and inviting, all dark wood and amber lighting that made the rain outside seem like it belonged to a different world. Leather booths lined the walls, and a magnificent bar stretched along one side, bottles arranged like a cathedral of alcohol. It wasn't cheap, but I'd earned this. One night of pretending I was the kind of person who belonged in places like this, I claimed a small table near the window, ordered a vodka martini, and pulled out my phone to text Jessica. She'd been my rock through the breakup, listening to me cry at 3 a.m, reminding me that leaving was the right choice even when loneliness made me doubt. Got the interview confirmed for Monday. Celebrating at fancy bar. Wish you were here instead of saving lives. Her response came immediately. You better get that job. I want details tomorrow. Stay safe. Love you. The martini arrived, perfectly chilled, the glass frosted. I raised it to myself in a silent toast and took that first sip, savoring the clean burn. That's when I saw him. Ryan stood in the entrance, water dripping from his coat, scanning the room. My stomach dropped. This couldn't be coincidence. The Sapphire Lounge was miles from his usual haunts, nowhere near his apartment or his office. He'd followed me here, or worse. He'd been tracking me somehow. Our eyes met across the crowded space. His face did that thing it always did, rearranging itself from whatever he'd actually been feeling into that practiced expression of wounded concern. He started walking toward me, and I considered running. But running would mean going back out into that rain, walking alone to the subway, and he'd just follow. At least here there were witnesses. Megan. He slid into the chair across from me without being invited. I've been trying to reach you. I blocked your number, Ryan. That should have been a clear message. We need to talk. His voice carried that edge of desperation I'd learned to recognize. You can't just throw away 2 years without at least hearing me out. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. But something stubborn rose up. Some need to prove I wasn't afraid of him anymore. One drink. You say what you need to say, and then you leave me alone. Permanently. He ordered bourbon, neat. The bartender brought it quickly, and Ryan settled back in his chair like we were old friends catching up instead of what we actually were. A woman trying to escape, and the man who couldn't let her go. I was only half listening to his practiced apologies when I became aware of someone watching us. Not the casual glances you get in crowded bars, but focused attention that made the hair on my arms stand up. In a corner booth sat 4 men, clearly in the middle of some business discussion. Papers spread on their table, voices low and serious. But one of them, the one who commanded the space even while sitting still, had his attention on our table, on me. He was striking in a way that made my breath catch. Dark hair swept back, strong jawline, expensive charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his broad shoulders. But it was his eyes that held me. Light brown, almost amber, and utterly focused. I looked away quickly, heat rising to my face. Ryan was still talking, oblivious. I'm going to the restroom, I said, cutting him off mid-sentence. I needed distance. Needed to think. Maybe I could slip out the back, avoid this whole situation. The bathroom was mercifully empty. I gripped the marble sink, staring at my reflection. My mascara had smudged slightly from the rain. My hair was a mess. What was I doing? I should have left the moment Ryan walked in. I fixed my makeup, took several deep breaths, and headed back out. The atmosphere in the bar had changed. I felt it before I understood it. Conversations seemed quieter. People's attention subtly shifted towards something happening near my table. Ryan sat alone, looking increasingly uncomfortable. But standing beside my table, holding my martini glass in his hand, was the man who'd been watching me earlier. Up close, he was even more imposing. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with the kind of controlled power that suggested he could be very dangerous if he chose. Anthony, a broad-shouldered man who'd been sitting at the corner booth, now stood near the bar, positioned like he was ready to move fast if needed. Another of the men from that booth had shifted to block the main exit. Whatever was happening, it had been coordinated with military precision. I approached slowly, confusion warring with alarm. "What's going on?" The amber-eyed man turned to me, and something in his expression softened slightly. "You shouldn't drink this." His voice was deep, cultured, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. "Your companion added something to it while you were gone." The words took a moment to register. Then ice flooded my veins. "What?" Ryan had gone pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "I don't know what he's talking about. He's crazy. Megan, let's just go. Sit down." The command wasn't loud, but it cut through the space like a blade. Ryan sat. "I watched you." The man's attention never left Ryan now. "The moment she walked away, you pulled something from your pocket. Small bottle. You poured it into her drink and stirred it with her cocktail spoon. Did you think no one would notice?" My hands were shaking. "Ryan, what did you do?" "Nothing, he's lying." "Megan, please, you know me." The amber-eyed man set my glass down on the table with deliberate care. "If it's nothing, then you won't mind proving it. Drink." The entire bar had gone silent. Every eye was on our table. "I'm not drinking her martini," Ryan stammered. "That's ridiculous." "Then I'll call the police." The man pulled out his phone. "Explain to them why you drugged someone's beverage in a crowded establishment with multiple witnesses." Anthony moved closer, a wall of muscle. The man blocking the exit crossed his arms. Ryan looked around desperately, searching for an ally, an escape route. He found neither. "Fine." Ryan's voice cracked. "Fine, I'll take a sip. This is insane. There's nothing in it." He reached for the glass with trembling fingers. The amber-eyed man kept his phone ready, his expression carved from stone. Ryan lifted the martini to his lips, and I saw the exact moment he realized he was trapped. His hand shook so badly some of the liquid spilled. "All of it," the man said quietly. "If you put it in her drink, you can drink it yourself." The threat in his tone was unmistakable. Ryan looked at Anthony, at the other men positioned around the bar, at the stranger who had somehow taken complete control of the situation. Then he looked at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. "Megan, please." But I said nothing. Some part of me, the part that had endured 2 years of his control, his manipulation, his slow erosion of everything I was, wanted to see this. Needed to see him face consequences for once. Ryan drank. 3 large swallows that drained half the glass. He set it down with shaking hands. "Happy now?" He tried to sound defiant, but his voice wavered. "We'll see." The amber-eyed man pulled out the chair I'd been sitting in and gestured for me to take it. "Sit. Stay away from him." I sat, unable to process what was happening. This stranger had just forced my ex-boyfriend to drink a cocktail Ryan had apparently drugged meant for me. The reality of how close I'd come to danger crashed over me in waves. Within 5 minutes, Ryan started sweating profusely. His pupils dilated. He gripped the table like the room was spinning. "I don't feel good," he mumbled. "What's happening? What did you give her?" The man's voice had gone cold. "What was in that bottle?" Ryan didn't answer. He was too busy fighting whatever was coursing through his system. His head dropped to the table, arms splayed out. The amber-eyed man made a subtle gesture, and Anthony appeared at Ryan's side along with another man. They lifted Ryan between them, supporting his weight as his legs buckled. "Take him. Make sure he gets medical attention. But don't let him leave until we know exactly what he used." Anthony nodded, and they half-carried, half-dragged Ryan toward a back exit I hadn't noticed before. The bar slowly came back to life, conversations resuming, though I caught people staring at me with a mixture of curiosity and pity. The man who had saved me pulled out the chair across from mine and sat down with fluid grace. "Are you all right?" Such a simple question. Was I all right? I'd almost been drugged by my ex-boyfriend. A stranger had intervened in a way that suggested he was very familiar with situations like this. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't understand what just happened. Your ex-boyfriend tried to drug you. I stopped him." He said it simply, like it was obvious. I'm Christopher Bellini. He extended his hand. I shook it automatically. His grip was warm, firm. Megan Turner. Megan. He said my name like he was testing how it felt. Were you planning to drink that entire martini? The question made me nauseous. I was celebrating. I have a job interview Monday. I thought... My voice broke slightly. I thought I was finally moving on. Something flickered in Christopher's amber eyes. Not quite sympathy, but understanding. You are moving on. You just had a very close call first. A bartender appeared with a glass of water, which I accepted gratefully. My throat felt tight. My chest constricted. How did you know? How did you see him do it? Christopher leaned back slightly. I notice things. It's how I've survived in my line of work. He paused. I saw you when you first came in. You looked nervous, on edge. Then he arrived, and you looked afraid. I wasn't afraid, I protested weakly. You were. And you tried to hide it, which made me pay closer attention. When you left for the bathroom, I watched him. Old habit. He gestured to the corner booth where his associates still sat, now resumed in their discussion. We were in the middle of business, but something told me to keep an eye on your table. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here. Christopher's expression hardened. Yes, you do. That's why you're shaking. He was right. I knew exactly what Ryan had planned. Whatever was in that drug, he'd intended for me to be helpless, vulnerable. The thought made bile rise in my throat. You shouldn't be alone tonight, Christopher said. Do you have somewhere safe to go? I thought of my small apartment, the one Ryan knew the address to. I'll be fine. That wasn't what I asked. His tone was gentle but insistent. You've just been through a trauma. Your ex-boyfriend drugged your drink. He knows where you live, doesn't he? I nodded mutely. Then you're not going back there alone tonight. Christopher pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. I have a secure apartment in the city. You can stay there. No strings, no expectations. Just safety until you figure out your next move. Every warning bell in my head went off. I didn't know this man. He might have saved me, but accepting his offer felt like trading one dangerous situation for another. As if reading my thoughts, Christopher added, I'll have Anthony, my associate who helped remove your ex, stay on guard. You'll have the apartment to yourself. I won't even be there. Why would you do this for a stranger? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Let's just say I have personal reasons for despising men who hurt women. And you're not safe alone tonight. You know it. I know it. He was right. I did know it. Ryan would come to my apartment. He'd bang on the door, make a scene, maybe force his way in. The thought of facing him alone after what he'd just tried to do terrified me. Okay, I whispered. Just for tonight. Christopher stood, offering his hand to help me up. I'll take you there myself. Christopher's car was nothing like I expected. Sleek black exterior, yes, but inside it felt more like a mobile office than a vehicle. Leather seats that adjusted to my body, ambient lighting that didn't hurt my traumatized eyes, and a privacy partition between us and the driver that Christopher left down. Anthony sat in the passenger seat, silent but vigilant. Every few minutes his eyes scanned the mirrors, the streets, checking for threats I wouldn't have known to look for. Where are we going? I asked, my voice sounding small in the spacious interior. I have an apartment in the financial district, Christopher said. Secure building doorman, cameras. You'll be safe there. I should have protested more. Should have insisted on going home, called a friend, done anything other than get into a stranger's car. But my body felt disconnected from my brain, shock settling into my bones like winter cold. Why would you do this? The question came out sharper than I intended. You don't know me. For all you know, this could be some elaborate setup. Christopher's expression didn't change. If you were setting me up, you wouldn't look like you're 2 seconds from throwing up. And your hands wouldn't be shaking like that. I looked down. He was right. My hands trembled in my lap, despite my attempts to still them. I told you, he continued. I have personal reasons for intervening when men hurt women. My sister Sophia was 23 when her boyfriend killed her. Beat her to death in their apartment while neighbors heard and did nothing. His jaw tightened. I was out of the country on business. By the time I got back, she'd been dead for 3 days. The pain in his voice was raw, immediate, despite years having passed. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "So am I. Every day." He looked out the window at the passing city. "After that, I made a promise. Any man in my sphere of influence who lays hands on a woman answers to me. Your ex-boyfriend just became my problem whether he likes it or not." The car pulled up to a gleaming high-rise, all glass and steel reaching toward the cloudy sky. A doorman in a crisp uniform immediately opened my door. "Mr. Bellini, welcome back." "Thank you, Marcus. This is Ms. Turner. She'll be staying in the guest apartment. Make sure she's added to the access list." "Of course, sir." I followed Christopher through a lobby that belonged in an architectural magazine. Marble floors, modern art on the walls, a fountain in the center that made soothing water sounds. The elevator required a key card to access, and Christopher used one from his wallet before pressing the button for the 15th floor. "You live here?" I asked. "I own the building. I live on the 20th floor. The apartment you'll be using is kept for business associates who need discretion." The word discretion sent a chill through me. What kind of business required that level of secrecy? The elevator doors opened directly into an apartment, not a hallway. My confusion must have shown because Christopher explained, "Each floor from 15 up is a single residence. More security, more privacy." The space was beautiful in an understated way. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the city, furniture that looked expensive but comfortable. Everything in shades of cream and gray, masculine but not oppressively so. "Bedroom through there," Christopher pointed. "Bathroom is en suite. Kitchen's fully stocked. There's a phone by the bed that connects directly to building security and to my personal line." I walked to the windows, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Ryan was recovering from the drugs he'd meant for me. The thought made me nauseous. "I've called a doctor," Christopher said, pulling out his phone. "He should be here in about 20 minutes. Just to make sure you didn't ingest anything before I stopped you." "I didn't drink any of it. Better to be certain." Anthony appeared in the doorway. "Perimeter's secure. Building security is aware of the situation. I'll be stationed outside the elevator." "Thank you, Anthony." Christopher turned to me. "He'll be here all night. You're completely safe." After Anthony left, silence stretched between us. Christopher remained standing, hands in his pockets, clearly unsure whether to leave me alone or stay. I was equally uncertain what I wanted. "You said you manage businesses," I finally said. "What kind of businesses?" He studied me for a long moment. "Several restaurants, a few nightclubs, import and export operations, real estate development, security consulting. And the less legal ones?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You're direct. I appreciate that." He moved to sit on the sofa, gesturing for me to take the chair across from him. "My family has been in certain lines of work for 3 generations. I inherited those responsibilities along with the legitimate businesses. I try to keep things as clean as possible, but I operate in a world where clean is relative." "So you're in the Mafia?" I said it plainly, needing to hear it confirmed. "That's a loaded term. I prefer to think of it as running a family business with unconventional methods." He leaned back. "Does that frighten you?" It should have. Everything about this situation should have terrified me. But sitting in that quiet apartment, looking at the man who'd saved me from something horrible, I felt oddly calm. Right now, I'm more frightened of Ryan than I am of you. Good, because you should be. The substance he used, we'll know more once it's analyzed, but based on how quickly he reacted, it was likely GHB or something similar. Date rape drug. He planned to assault you tonight, Megan. Hearing it said so plainly made the room spin slightly. We dated for 2 years. He never. I stopped, corrected myself. He was controlling, manipulative, but he never physically hurt me. Drugging someone is physical assault. What he planned to do after you were incapacitated would have been rape. Christopher's voice was gentle, but firm. You need to understand the danger you were in. A knock at the door interrupted us. Christopher rose to answer it, returning with a man in his 60s carrying a medical bag. Megan, this is Dr. Harrison. He's going to examine you. The examination was quick and professional. Dr. Harrison checked my vitals, drew blood for testing, asked questions about what I'd consumed that evening. Through it all, Christopher waited in the kitchen, giving us privacy but remaining close. "You're perfectly healthy," Dr. Harrison concluded. "No signs that you ingested anything harmful. The blood work will confirm, but I'm confident you'll be fine physically. Emotionally, you've experienced a trauma. I'd recommend speaking with someone, a therapist who specializes in assault cases." After he left, Christopher returned with 2 glasses of water. "Are you hungry? I can have food brought up." I couldn't eat. My stomach still felt like a clenched fist. "But I should call my friend. She'll be worried." "Of course. Use any phone you'd like." I pulled out my cell phone, realizing it was nearly 11. Jessica would be at the hospital, starting her shift. I dialed, and she answered on the first ring. "Megan, where the hell have you been? You said you'd text after your drink and then nothing. I've been calling for hours." "I know, I'm sorry. Something happened." "What kind of something? Are you okay? Do I need to come get you?" I glanced at Christopher, who'd moved to stand by the windows, giving me the illusion of privacy. "I ran into Ryan at the bar. That asshole. What did he want?" "To talk, apparently. But Jess, he put something in my drink. Tried to drug me." The line went silent for several heartbeats. "He what?" "Someone saw him do it. Stopped me from drinking it. Made Ryan drink it instead to prove what he'd done. Ryan ended up passing out and taken to a hospital." "Oh my God, Megan. Where are you now?" "I'm coming to get you right now. I'll leave work. I don't care. I'm safe. The man who helped me, he has a secure apartment. I'm staying here tonight because Ryan knows where I live." "The man who helped you? What man?" "Megan, you can't just go home with strangers. I know how it sounds, but I trust him. His name is Christopher Bellini. He owns the building, he's been nothing but respectful, and he has security watching the apartment. I'm okay, really." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Bellini, that name sounds familiar. Let me look him up." I heard her typing in the background. "Oh shit. Megan, this guy is serious. There are like a dozen news articles about him. Business owner, philanthropist, but also rumors about organized crime connections. This is who you're with? He saved my life tonight, Jess. I know, and I'm grateful. But this is complicated. Promise me you'll be careful. And promise you'll meet me for lunch tomorrow so I can see with my own eyes that you're all right. I promise. I'll text you in the morning with details. I love you. Be safe. Love you too." I hung up and found Christopher still standing by the windows, silhouetted against the city lights. "Your friend is worried," he observed. "She looked you up, found the articles about you, and she warned you to be careful." It wasn't a question. "Yes, she's a good friend. You should listen to her advice." He turned to face me. "I am dangerous, Megan. The world I operate in has violence, betrayal, and moral compromises most people never have to think about. You're safe here tonight, but you should maintain a healthy amount of caution." His honesty was disarming. "Thank you for telling me that. I don't lie. Not to people I'm trying to protect." He checked his watch. "It's late. You should rest. I'll be upstairs if you need anything. Anthony will be outside your elevator door all night." "You're leaving?" I felt a flicker of panic at the thought of being alone. "Would you prefer I stay?" I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I nodded. Christopher settled back onto the sofa. "Then I'll stay until you fall asleep. Take the bedroom, get comfortable. I'll be right here." I retreated to the bedroom, finding pajamas laid out on the bed along with new toiletries in the bathroom. Everything exactly my size, which should have been creepy, but instead felt like Christopher paid attention to details that mattered. After changing and washing my face, I returned to the bedroom, leaving the door slightly ajar. I could see Christopher through the gap, laptop open now, working on something while keeping his promise to stay. "Christopher," I called out softly. "Yes?" "Earlier in the bar, you said you noticed me when I first came in. Why?" A pause. "You looked like someone trying very hard to convince herself she was happy. I recognize that expression. I've worn it myself. Are you happy now?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I'm working on it. Sleep, Megan. Tomorrow will be clearer." I lay in the unfamiliar bed, in the apartment of a man who was either my savior or a different kind of danger, and somehow felt safer than I had in months. Through the gap in the door, I could see Christopher working, a silent guardian against the darkness outside and the trauma trying to overwhelm me. Tomorrow I'd have to face what Ryan had tried to do, what it meant for my safety, how to move forward. But tonight, I let myself drift into uneasy sleep, protected by a man whose world I didn't understand, but whose intentions, at least for now, seemed pure. Sunday morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd been in Christopher's guest apartment for 3 days, and the surreal quality of my situation hadn't diminished. If anything, it had intensified. I stood at those windows with my second cup of coffee, watching the city wake up below. Somewhere down there, Ryan was recovering from the drugs he'd intended for me. Somewhere, my normal life waited to be reclaimed. But I couldn't bring myself to leave this protected bubble just yet. Christopher had visited each morning, always professional, always checking if I needed anything. We'd fallen into an odd routine. He'd arrive around 8, bring pastries from a bakery nearby, sit at the kitchen counter while I ate, and we'd talk. Not about heavy things, not about Ryan or the Mafia or danger. Instead, we discussed books, movies, the architecture of the city, safe topics that let us learn each other without diving too deep. But today felt different. Today I needed answers. I'd spent half the night on my laptop, searching Christopher Bellini's name. The results were a strange mix of legitimate business profiles and carefully worded news articles that danced around accusations without making any concrete claims. Philanthropist, restaurant owner, real estate developer, alleged ties to organized crime, person of interest in federal investigations that never went anywhere. His face appeared in society pages, always in expensive suits, always with that controlled expression that revealed nothing. The man in those photos seemed like a stranger compared to the one who'd sat on my couch until I fell asleep, who brought me breakfast, who looked at me like I mattered. A knock at the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. I checked the peephole out of habit, even though no one could reach this floor without clearance. Christopher stood there, 2 coffee cups in hand, instead of the usual pastry bag. "Change of plans," he said when I opened the door. "I thought we could talk today. Really talk." I stepped aside to let him enter. He'd dressed more casually than usual. Dark jeans and a gray sweater that somehow made him look more approachable and more dangerous at the same time. "I've been researching you," I said, deciding on honesty. "Online. There are a lot of articles. I'm sure there are." He set the coffees on the counter. "What did you learn? That you're either a successful businessman with unfortunate connections or a criminal who's very good at hiding it. The articles can't seem to decide." Christopher's expression didn't change. "What do you think?" "I think you're both. I think you inherited a world you didn't choose, and you're trying to navigate it the best way you know how." I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup he'd brought. "But I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. What exactly do you do?" He studied me for a long moment, then moved to sit on the sofa, gesturing for me to join him. I did, keeping careful distance between us. "My grandfather came to this country with nothing," Christopher began. "He built a network, an organization that helped Italian immigrants survive in a city that didn't want them. Some of what he did was legal. Most wasn't. My father inherited that network and expanded it. When he died 5 years ago, it became mine." "So you run a crime family." "I run multiple businesses, legitimate and otherwise. I employ over 300 people directly, hundreds more indirectly. I protect neighborhoods that the police have abandoned. I provide services that banks won't offer to certain communities." He paused. "I also enforce contracts that can't be taken to court. I move goods across borders without proper documentation. I ensure cooperation through methods that would horrify most civilians." The brutal honesty should have scared me. Instead, I appreciated it. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know who's protecting you. And because the situation with Ryan has become more complicated." My stomach tightened. "How complicated?" "He's been released from the hospital. The substance he used was GHB, confirmed by the lab work, enough to incapacitate you for hours. But his lawyers got him out on bail within 48 hours. Charges reduced to attempted assault. That's impossible. You had witnesses. You had evidence. I had evidence of him drinking a drugged beverage. His lawyers argued that someone else drugged it, that he was a victim too. It's a weak defense, but it bought him freedom while the case moves through the courts. Christopher's jaw tightened. But that's not the real problem. Ryan has connections I didn't initially realize. He's been doing business with the Volkov family. Who are they? Russian organized crime. They've been trying to expand their territory into areas my family controls. Ryan's been serving as a middleman for some of their money laundering operations. He's small time in their world, but he's connected. The implications crashed over me. They'll protect him. They already are. And worse. Ryan knows you're important to me now. He saw my reaction. Saw how I intervened. The Volkovs could try to use you as leverage against me. I stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. So I'm what? Collateral damage in some mob war? You're a complication they'll try to exploit if given the chance. Christopher remained seated, his voice calm. Which is why I think you should consider relocating temporarily. I have properties out of state where you'd be completely safe. New identity, financial support, everything you'd need. No. The word came out sharp, definite. Megan, be reasonable. The danger is real. I spent 2 years making myself smaller for Ryan. Changing what I wore, who I saw, how I spoke. I finally broke free, and now you want me to disappear? I turned to face him. I have a job interview tomorrow morning. Crawford Design Agency. It's the opportunity I've been working toward for 3 years. I'm not running away from my life because of Ryan or the Volkovs or anyone else. Christopher stood, crossing the space between us in 3 long strides. That interview won't matter if you're dead. Then find another way to protect me. You're supposed to be this powerful crime boss, right? Figure it out. Something like respect flickered in his amber eyes. You're stubborn. I'm done being controlled. Even with good intentions, it's still control. He nodded slowly, and I watched him think, calculate, assess options with the speed of someone used to making strategic decisions. There might be another way. It's riskier, but it keeps you visible and active. I'm listening. I own a restaurant in Midtown, Bella Notte, high-end Italian cuisine, exclusive clientele. I need someone to manage the front of house, handle reservations, coordinate with VIP guests. He met my eyes directly. The schedule is flexible, evening hours mostly. You could attend your interview tomorrow, take the design work if you get it, and still work for me. The important part is that you'd be publicly associated with me. Everyone who matters would know you're under my protection. The Volkovs are bold, but they're not stupid. Harming someone directly connected to me would be declaring war, and they're not ready for that level of conflict. I processed his offer, looking for the trap. What's the catch? The catch is that you'd be working in my world. My restaurant serves both legitimate business people and criminals. You'd see things, hear things, be exposed to aspects of my life that you can't unknow. He stepped closer. And you'd have to trust me absolutely. My security team would need to know your movements, where you are, who you're with. It's not freedom, Megan. It's a different kind of cage. Just larger and more comfortable. But I'd still have my life, my career, my interview, my choices. Within parameters, yes. I thought about the alternative, hiding somewhere under an assumed name, waiting for men I didn't know to decide my fate. At least Christopher's offer let me fight. Let me live visibly. I want to earn my position, I said firmly. No special treatment because I'm under your protection. If I'm bad at the job, you fire me. If I'm good at it, I get paid what I deserve. A genuine smile touched Christopher's lips. You're negotiating terms with me. Shouldn't I? Most people don't have the courage. He extended his hand. You have a deal. You start Wednesday evening, after your interview. That gives me time to brief the staff and arrange security. I shook his hand, and he held it perhaps a moment longer than necessary, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that sent unexpected warmth up my arm. Thank you, I said quietly, for giving me options instead of orders. Thank you for being brave enough to stay and fight instead of running. It makes my job easier if you're not hiding. The moment stretched between us, charged with something neither of us was ready to name. Then my phone buzzed, shattering the tension. A text from Jessica. I'm coming over. Anthony already cleared me. Be there in 20 minutes. Christopher read my expression. Your friend? She's worried. She wanted to come sooner, but I kept putting her off. I think she's afraid you've kidnapped me or something. She's protective. That's good. He moved toward the door. I'll give you privacy. But Megan, when you tell her about the restaurant job, be prepared for resistance. She's going to try to talk you out of it. How do you know? Because it's what a good friend should do. Listen to her concerns. They'll probably be valid. After he left, I straightened the apartment, nervous about Jessica's visit in a way I couldn't quite explain. She was going to have opinions, strong ones, and part of me knew she'd be right to worry. She arrived exactly 20 minutes later, bursting through the door the moment I opened it, and pulling me into a fierce hug. Let me look at you. She held me at arm's length, examining my face like a doctor checking for symptoms. You look okay. Tired, but okay. Are you eating? Sleeping? I'm fine, Jess. Really. Fine is what people say when they're not fine. She moved past me into the apartment, and I watched her take it all in. The expensive furniture, the view, the obvious wealth. This is where you've been staying? Megan, this place probably costs more per month than we make in a year. Christopher owns the building. Right. Christopher Bellini, the maybe mobster who swept in and saved you. She turned to face me, worry etched in every line of her face. I've been reading about him, Meg. Really reading. There are federal investigations, rumors about violence, connections to some seriously bad people. And you're just... what? Living in his apartment? It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it for me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you escaped one controlling man and jumped straight into the arms of another. The accusation stung, because part of me had worried the same thing. It's not like that with Christopher. He's been nothing but respectful. He's given me options. Let me make my own choices. Has he? Jessica sat on the sofa, patting the space next to her. Or has he just been really good at making you think you have choices while guiding you exactly where he wants you? I sat beside her, trying to organize my thoughts. Ryan tried to drug me, Jess. You know what would have happened if Christopher hadn't stopped him. And now Ryan's out on bail, connected to Russian criminals who might try to use me against Christopher. I can't just go back to my normal life and pretend I'm safe. So what's the plan? You hide here forever? No. Christopher offered me a job at his restaurant. I'd be publicly connected to him, which makes me too risky for his enemies to touch. And the schedule is flexible, so I can still go to my interview tomorrow, still do design work. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. You're going to work for a mob boss. I'm going to work at a restaurant that happens to be owned by someone with complicated business interests. That's the same thing, just with prettier words. She took my hand. I'm not saying don't do it. Honestly, I don't know what the right answer is here. But I need you to go into this with your eyes open. Men like Christopher Bellini don't do favors without expecting something in return. Maybe not today, maybe not this month, but eventually there will be a price. I know that. I'm not naive about who he is. Aren't you, though? Her voice was gentle but firm. He saved you, Meg. That creates a powerful psychological bond. Gratitude can look a lot like something else, especially when the person you're grateful to is attractive and attentive and makes you feel protected. Just promise me you'll be careful. With your safety and with your heart. I wanted to argue, to insist that I knew exactly what I was doing. But Jessica knew me too well, could read the confusion I was trying to hide. I promise I'll be careful, I said instead. We spent the next hour catching up properly. She told me about the chaos at the hospital, about the new resident who couldn't start an IV to save his life, about her ongoing battle with the scheduling supervisor, normal life stuff that felt both comforting and surreal given my current circumstances. When she finally left, with multiple promises that I'd call her every day and meet for lunch regularly, the apartment felt emptier than before. I had Christopher's offer, Jessica's warnings, and my interview tomorrow. 3 different directions pulling at me, and I'd have to find a way to navigate all of them without losing myself in the process. That night, I laid out my interview clothes, reviewed my portfolio one last time, and tried to imagine a future where I could balance design work, restaurant management, and being under the protection of a man who occupied the shadows between legal and criminal. It seemed impossible, but impossible had been leaving Ryan. Impossible had been surviving these past 3 days without falling apart. If I could do those things, maybe I could do this too. 2 weeks into working at Bella Nata, and I'd fallen into a rhythm I never expected. Monday morning, I'd gone to my interview at Crawford Design Agency with my portfolio and a confidence I didn't entirely feel. The creative director, a woman named Patricia Lane, had loved my work. By Wednesday, I had my first freelance project, a branding package for a boutique hotel chain. By Friday, I was juggling design work during the day and managing reservations at Christopher's restaurant in the evenings. It was exhausting. It was exhilarating. It was mine. The restaurant itself was stunning, all exposed brick and soft lighting, with tables arranged for both intimacy and the ability to see who else was dining. The clientele was exactly what Christopher had warned me about, a mixture of legitimate business people, celebrities who valued discretion, and men who carried themselves with the same controlled danger Christopher did. I'd learned to recognize the latter quickly. They moved differently, spoke differently, tipped extravagantly, and never caused scenes. The staff had accepted me with professional courtesy, but I'd noticed the way they watched me when Christopher was around. The way conversations would pause when I entered the kitchen. Marco, the head chef, a man in his 50s with tattoos covering his forearms, had pulled me aside on my third night. "You seem like a good person," he'd said in accented English. "Mr. Bellini, he doesn't bring people into his world lightly. Whatever you are to him, be careful with it. And with yourself." I'd thanked him, unsure what else to say. What was I to Christopher? His employee, certainly. The woman he was protecting, obviously. But there was something else growing between us. Something neither of us had acknowledged, but both of us felt every time we occupied the same space. He came to the restaurant most evenings around 9, always with at least one associate, sometimes more. He'd take his usual table in the back corner, the one with sightlines to all entrances and exits, and conduct business over perfectly prepared meals. But his attention would track me as I moved through the dining room, greeting guests, managing the complex dance of reservations and walk-ins. Tonight was Saturday, our busiest night. Every table was booked, and I'd been on my feet for 5 hours straight. My dress, a simple black sheath that the restaurant provided for front-of-house staff, felt like it was painted on after hours of movement. My face hurt from smiling. Jessica had stopped by earlier during her dinner break from the hospital, sitting at the bar and watching me work with obvious concern. We'd managed a quick conversation between my tasks. "You look tired," she'd said, stirring her wine. "I'm fine. Just busy." "That's your new favorite phrase. I'm fine." She'd studied me. "Are you eating? Sleeping? Taking care of yourself?" "Jessica, I'm 27 years old. I know how to take care of myself." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're working 2 jobs, living in a building owned by a crime boss and pretending this is all normal." "It is normal. My normal, anyway." She'd left shortly after, with promises that we'd have lunch tomorrow, a proper meal where we could actually talk. I'd agreed, knowing she was right to worry, but unable to articulate why I felt safer in Christopher's orbit than I had anywhere else. Christopher had arrived at his usual time, but alone tonight, which was unusual. He'd caught my eye across the room and nodded toward his table. I'd seated him personally, as I always did, hyper-aware of how close he was as I placed the menu before him. "Busy night," he'd observed. "Every table full. Marco is in his element. And you? How are you managing?" "I'm good. Really good, actually. I finished the first draft of the hotel branding today. The client loved it." Something warm had crossed his features. Pride, maybe. I knew they would. "You're talented, Megan." The compliment had settled around my heart like an embrace. I was returning from seating a party of 6 when it happened. A man at table 12, clearly several drinks past sober, grabbed my wrist as I walked past. "Hey, sweetheart, how about you sit down and have a drink with me?" I'd dealt with drunk customers before. The key was to remain professional but firm. I appreciate the offer, sir, but I'm working. Can I get you anything else? His grip tightened. I wasn't asking. Sir, please let go of my wrist. Make me. The dining room had gone quiet, conversations dying as people registered what was happening. I was about to signal for security when a presence materialized beside me. Christopher, his hand closing over the man's wrist with controlled pressure. She asked you to let go. His voice was soft, deadly. The drunk man looked up, his bravado evaporating as he recognized who was speaking. I didn't mean anything. Just having fun. Remove your hand from her. Now. The man released me so quickly I stumbled slightly. Christopher steadied me with his free hand, while maintaining his grip on the drunk's wrist. Anthony, Christopher said, not raising his voice. But somehow the man appeared instantly at the table. Please escort this gentleman out. He's no longer welcome at Bellinot. Of course, Mr. Bellini. The drunk was removed quickly and quietly, but the damage was done. Everyone in the restaurant had witnessed the interaction, had seen Christopher's reaction, the protective fury that had radiated from him. Are you all right? He asked me, still close, his hand warm on my arm. I'm fine. It was just a drunk customer. It was assault. His jaw was tight. Come with me. It wasn't a request. He guided me through the restaurant, past the kitchen, to a private office I'd never been in before. The moment the door closed behind us, the professional mask he wore for the dining room slipped. Did he hurt you? Christopher examined my wrist, where red marks were already forming. It's nothing. Really. I've dealt with worse. That's not the reassurance you think it is. His thumb traced over the marks gently. You shouldn't have to deal with any of it. We were standing too close. I could feel the heat of him. Smell the subtle cologne he wore. See the concern and something darker in his amber eyes. The office suddenly felt too small. The air too charged. Christopher, I started, but didn't know how to finish. I can't stop thinking about you. The confession came out rough, unpolished. I know I shouldn't. I know all the reasons this is a terrible idea. You work for me. You're under my protection. I'm bringing you into a world that could destroy you. But every time I see you, every time you walk past my table, I want things I have no right to want. My heart hammered against my ribs. What things? Instead of answering, he cupped my face in his hands, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I didn't. I closed the distance between us and kissed him. The world narrowed to his mouth on mine, his hands sliding into my hair, my body pressed against his. It was desperate and perfect, and terrifying all at once. He tasted like the wine he'd been drinking, his lips demanding but careful, like he was afraid I might break. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Tell me you want this, he said. Tell me I'm not taking advantage of the situation. I want this. I want you. The admission felt dangerous and liberating, but I need you to understand something. I just got out of a relationship where I lost myself completely. I can't do that again. I need boundaries, Christopher. I need to know I can walk away if I have to. His expression shifted. Vulnerability I'd never seen before crossing his features. I would never stop you from leaving, but I'm not going to pretend I could watch you go easily. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for honest. Then honestly, I want you in ways that probably aren't healthy. I want to protect you, possess you, know everything about you. My world doesn't do casual well, Megan. If we do this, I'll want all of you. I should have been scared. Should have recognized the warning signs, the possessiveness that echoed Ryan's control. But this felt different. Christopher was offering me a choice, laying out the terms clearly, letting me decide. I want all of you too, I whispered. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. His hands mapped my body through my dress while mine explored the muscles beneath his shirt. We lost track of time, lost in each other until a discreet knock at the door reminded us where we were. Mr. Bellini, Anthony's voice came through. Marco is asking about Ms. Turner. Christopher pulled back, his breathing uneven. Tell him she'll be out shortly. He helped me straighten my dress, fix my hair, return to some semblance of professional appearance. But his eyes held promises of things unfinished. "Have dinner with me tomorrow," he said. "My family's house. I want you to meet my mother." That seems fast. In my world, when you claim someone, you do it publicly. Meeting my mother makes a statement that you're important to me. It offers additional protection. He traced my jawline. But selfishly, I want her to meet you. She'll love you. I agreed, and we returned to our respective roles, him to his table, me to managing the dining room. But everything had changed. The staff noticed, I could tell. The way Christopher watched me had shifted from protective to possessive. The way I moved through the space carried new confidence, the certainty of being wanted. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. When the restaurant finally closed at midnight, Christopher walked me to the car where Anthony waited to drive me back to the apartment. "Tomorrow at 1, Christopher said, opening the car door for me. "I'll pick you up. I'll be ready." He kissed me once more, brief but intense, before stepping back. "Sleep well, Megan." As the car pulled away, I watched him through the rear window, standing on the sidewalk in the glow of streetlights, hands in his pockets, looking like every dangerous promise I'd ever been warned about. And I was diving in head first. Consequences be damned. 1 month had slipped by since that first kiss in Christopher's office. 1 month of stolen moments between restaurant shifts and design projects, of learning what it meant to be with someone who occupied both legitimate business and shadowy underworld. 1 month of falling deeper into something that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. I was at Christopher's penthouse apartment for the first time, a space that reflected him perfectly. Minimalist but comfortable, expensive without being ostentatious, with security features I'd learned not to ask too many questions about. We'd just finished dinner, something Christopher had cooked himself, pasta carbonara that rivaled anything Marco made at the restaurant. "You're distracted," I observed, watching him stare at his phone with an expression I'd come to recognize. Business. The kind that put that hard edge in his amber eyes. He set the phone down deliberately. "Ryan made bail this morning." My stomach dropped. I'd known it was coming. His lawyers had been working the system. But knowing and experiencing were different things. How? Expensive attorneys who know which judges to approach. The charges were reduced from attempted drugging to simple assault. He'll likely get probation and mandatory counseling if it even goes to trial. Christopher's voice was controlled, but anger simmered beneath. Someone inside the prosecutor's office is being paid to look the other way. By the Volkovs? Almost certainly. He stood, pacing to the windows overlooking the city. But that's not the worst of it. My people intercepted communications between Ryan and his Volkov handlers. They're planning something, Megan. Something specific. The way he said it made my blood run cold. What kind of something? Christopher turned to face me, and I saw genuine fear in his expression for the first time. "There's a charity gala in 2 weeks. The Children's Hospital fundraiser you mentioned wanting to attend because your design client is sponsoring a table. The Volkovs know about it. They're planning to grab you there, use you to force concessions from me about territory disputes." I processed this information, my mind immediately jumping to logistics. "So we don't go. Problem solved." It's not that simple. If they're planning this, they'll plan something else. The specific event doesn't matter. You being in public, accessible, that's what matters to them. He crossed back to me, kneeling beside my chair so we were eye level. "I want you to move out of the guest apartment. Come stay at my estate in Westchester. It's fully secured, staff you can trust, distance from the city. You'd be safe there. For how long? As long as it takes to resolve the Volkov situation." I stood, needing distance to think. "And my work? My design projects? The restaurant? You could work remotely. Video calls, digital submissions. The restaurant can function without you for a while. So you want me to hide, to disappear. I want you alive," Christopher said sharply. "I want you safe. Is that really so unreasonable? It's a cage, Christopher. A beautiful, secure cage, but still a cage." I moved to the windows, looking out at the city I'd fought so hard to build a life in. I left Ryan because he controlled every aspect of my existence. I can't let fear of the Volkovs do the same thing. This isn't about control. It's about protection. It feels the same from where I'm standing. Silence stretched between us, heavy with frustration and fear. Finally, Christopher spoke, his voice raw. I'm in love with you, Megan. Completely, irrationally in love with you. The thought of something happening to you, of them taking you, hurting you, using you against me, it terrifies me in ways I haven't felt since my sister died. I can't lose you. The confession should have filled me with joy. Instead, it filled me with complicated grief. I love you too, but I won't live in hiding, Christopher. I fought too hard to reclaim my life to give it up now, even for you. Then what do you suggest? Because doing nothing isn't an option. I turned to face him, an idea forming that was probably reckless but felt right. Make me too visible to touch. You said yourself that harming someone directly connected to you would be declaring war. So make that connection undeniable. I go to the gala, to every public event, but surrounded by security. The Volkovs would have to be desperate or stupid to try something when everyone knows I'm yours. And if they are that desperate, better to face it head on than spend months looking over my shoulder. Christopher stared at me like I'd suggested we walk into a Volkov stronghold unarmed. That's insane. Is it? You operate in a world of power dynamics and calculated risks. What sends a stronger message? Me hiding like I'm afraid? Or me standing beside you publicly, showing everyone that your enemies can't intimidate you into protecting what's yours? He was silent for a long moment, and I could see him working through the strategic implications. It's incredibly risky. Everything about being with you is risky. At least this way, I'm an active participant instead of a protected possession. You'd be a target. I'm already a target. This way, I'm a target that's too expensive to hit. Christopher ran his hands through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. If we do this, there are conditions, non-negotiable ones. I'm listening. You learn self-defense, real training, not just basic awareness. Anthony will work with you daily. You learn escape protocols, how to recognize threats, how to buy yourself time if something goes wrong. Agreed. You don't go anywhere without security, ever. Even if it feels excessive or annoying or like you're being watched. Your life is more important than your privacy. As long as the security is professional, not invasive. I won't have someone monitoring my phone calls or reading my emails. Fair. He moved closer, his hands framing my face. And you tell me immediately if you change your mind, if this becomes too much, if you want out. No judgment, no argument. Your safety and well-being come first, always. The genuine concern in his voice undid something in my chest. I promise. Then we do it your way. But Megan, if something happens to you because I agreed to this, I'll never forgive myself. Nothing will happen. We'll be careful, smart, together. He kissed me then, desperate and claiming, like he was trying to memorize every detail. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. You're the bravest person I know. Or the most stubborn. I haven't decided which. Can it be both? The ghost of a smile touched his lips. With you, it usually is. The next morning, I called Jessica during her lunch break, needing her perspective before committing fully to the plan. You want to do what? Her voice carried equal parts disbelief and concern. Christopher wants me to hide at his estate until the Volkov threat is resolved. I suggested staying visible instead, making me too connected to him for them to risk touching. Megan, that's using yourself as bait. It's using visibility as protection. There's a difference. I heard her sigh. Explain the difference. Because from here it sounds like the same dangerous idea with different words. If I hide, they'll always be looking for an opportunity. If I'm visible and obviously protected, any move against me becomes a declaration of war between criminal organizations. The Volkovs aren't ready for that level of conflict, according to Christopher's intelligence. It's actually safer, according to Christopher's intelligence. Do you hear yourself? You're making life and death decisions based on crime, family politics. I'm making decisions about my own life based on the reality of my situation. I'm already in danger, Jess. This just shifts the dynamic in my favor. Another sigh. I hate that you're probably right. I hate that this has become your normal. But if you're asking for my opinion, I think hiding would drive you crazy. You're not the type to sit passively while others decide your fate. So you think I should do it? I think you should do whatever keeps you alive and preserves the person you've become. Just promise me something." "What?" "Promise that if it gets too dangerous, if the situation changes, you'll actually consider running. Don't let pride or stubbornness get you killed." "I promise." "And Megan? The self-defense training Christopher mentioned? Take it seriously. Learn everything they'll teach you." After we hung up, I felt more settled in my decision. Christopher had already arranged for Anthony to begin training me that afternoon. The sessions were brutal in ways I hadn't anticipated. Anthony wasn't teaching me to fight, he was teaching me to survive. How to recognize when someone was following me. How to position myself in public spaces for maximum visibility and escape routes. How to break various holds and grips. How to use everyday items as weapons. How to spot concealed firearms. How to fall without serious injury. How to scream effectively to draw attention. "The goal isn't to win a fight," Anthony explained during our third session. "The goal is to create opportunity. 3 seconds where you can run, where you can get to safety, where help can reach you. That's all we're building." My body ached in new places every day. My reaction times improved. My awareness sharpened. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. The man who'd been on the same subway car 3 days in a row. The vehicle that parked across from my building twice in 1 week. The way Christopher's security team positioned themselves to create protective barriers without being obvious about it. 2 weeks of training transformed how I moved through the world. I wasn't naive anymore about the threats surrounding me, but I also wasn't paralyzed by fear. Knowledge, Christopher had told me, was the most powerful protection. Understanding the dangers meant I could navigate them intelligently. The night before the charity gala, Christopher came to the guest apartment where I was still technically living, though I spent most nights at his penthouse now. "Last chance to change your mind," he said, though his tone suggested he already knew my answer. "I'm not changing my mind." "Then tomorrow, we make a statement. You walk into that gala on my arm, and everyone in our world will understand what you mean to me. The protection that comes with that is absolute. But so is the attention. Once we do this, there's no going back to anonymity." I thought about the woman I'd been 2 months ago, sitting in that bar trying to celebrate a job interview, about to be drugged by the man I'd wasted 2 years on. I thought about who I'd become, the strength I'd found, the life I was building despite the danger. I don't want to go back. I want to move forward. With you, whatever that means. Christopher pulled me close, and I felt his heart beating against my chest. "Tomorrow, then. We face it together." The plan crystallized a week before the Children's Hospital fundraiser. I was reviewing design mock-ups at Christopher's penthouse when Anthony arrived with information that made my stomach twist into knots. "We intercepted communications," Anthony said, spreading documents across the dining table. "Ryan's been in contact with Volkov operatives. They're planning something at the charity gala." Christopher stood behind me, his hand resting on my shoulder. I could feel the tension radiating through him. "What kind of something?" "Extraction. They wait until you're away from the main ballroom, grab you, and force negotiations for territorial concessions." Anthony's expression was grim. "They've been surveilling the venue all week. They know the layout, the security protocols, everything." My first instinct was fear. My second was anger. "So they're using the one event I actually wanted to attend as their opportunity?" "We cancel your appearance," Christopher said immediately. "You stay here, protected." Problem solved. But even as he said it, I knew that wasn't the solution. Canceling would just delay the inevitable. The Volkovs would find another opportunity, another event, another moment when I was vulnerable. Running accomplished nothing, except postponing the confrontation. An idea formed, reckless and terrifying, but somehow right. What if we don't cancel? What if we let them try? Christopher's hand tightened on my shoulder. Absolutely not. Hear me out. I turned to face him, seeing the immediate rejection in his eyes. They're planning to grab me when I'm alone, right? So we make sure I'm never actually alone. We control the environment, set the trap, and catch them in the act. All of them, not just Ryan. End this completely. You want to use yourself as bait. His voice had gone flat, dangerous. I want to stop looking over my shoulder. This threat has been hanging over us for weeks. If we have advanced knowledge of their plan, we can turn it against them. Anthony studied me with something like respect. It could work. If we position our people correctly, wire the entire venue, and ensure multiple layers of protection, we could capture the whole operation. No. Christopher's response was immediate. I won't risk her life on a gamble. It's not a gamble if we control all the variables, I argued. You have the resources, the personnel, the knowledge of their plan. That's not bait, Christopher. That's strategy. We spent the next 3 hours debating, with Anthony providing tactical input, while Christopher raised every possible objection. Finally, after exhausting every alternative, he agreed on conditions so strict they bordered on suffocating. Jessica was the hardest person to convince. I met her for lunch the next day at a cafe near the hospital, and the moment I explained the plan, her fork clattered onto her plate. You've lost your mind. She didn't raise her voice, but her tone carried absolute disbelief. You're deliberately putting yourself in danger to catch criminals. Do you hear how insane that sounds? I hear how it sounds. But Jess, this threat isn't going away. They'll keep trying until they succeed or until we stop them. This way, I'm not a victim. I'm actively participating in ending the danger, by letting them almost kidnap you, by creating a controlled situation where they think they're kidnapping me, but they're actually walking into a trap. There's a difference. She was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee with mechanical precision. If I say no, if I beg you not to do this, will it change your mind? Probably not. But I need you to understand why. I spent 2 years with Ryan making myself smaller, quieter, less visible. I finally have my life back, my autonomy back. I won't surrender that to fear, even justified fear. I need to face this head on. Jessica reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then I'm not going to waste time trying to talk you out of it. But I have conditions. You call me before the event. You text me every 30 minutes during. And if anything goes wrong, you get yourself out. Your pride isn't worth your life. Christopher has an entire security team. Nothing will go wrong. Famous last words. But she smiled slightly. I'll be at the hospital that night. Close enough to respond if needed. The night of the gala arrived with unseasonable cold. I dressed in an emerald green gown that Christopher had commissioned, the fabric clinging perfectly while allowing complete range of movement. Anthony had insisted on that detail during the fitting. The dress needed to look elegant, but function practically if I had to run or fight. Christopher adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror, his reflection showing none of the worry I knew he felt. Last chance, Megan. We can still leave, spend the evening anywhere else. We're going. We're ending this. The venue was spectacular, a historic hotel ballroom with soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers. My design client had sponsored one of the premium tables, and I'd been helping coordinate the visual branding for weeks. Under different circumstances, I would have been thrilled to see my work displayed so prominently. Christopher's security team had arrived hours earlier, positioning themselves throughout the venue as waitstaff, valets, and even guests. Anthony himself was dressed as hotel security, radio concealed beneath his jacket. I wore a small microphone disguised as a pendant, ensuring every word I spoke would be recorded. The first 2 hours passed without incident. I mingled with donors, discussed design concepts with my client, and played the role of Christopher's companion with practiced ease. But tension hummed beneath the surface, every nerve on high alert. Then I saw Ryan. He stood near the bar, wearing a suit that probably cost more than he'd ever spent on clothing in his life. Volkov money, clearly. 2 men flanked him, their postures identifying them as muscle despite their formal attire. They scanned the crowd with professional efficiency, obviously looking for me. Christopher's hand found the small of my back. I see them. Anthony's team has visual. Remember, stay in public spaces, don't give them an opening. Until we want them to have an opening. Megan, I know the plan. Trust me. An hour later, I excused myself from a conversation about hospital fundraising initiatives and headed toward the restroom corridor, exactly as we'd planned. It was a calculated risk, a moment of apparent vulnerability designed to draw Ryan out. The corridor was empty of guests, but populated with Christopher's people in strategic positions. I'd barely reached the hallway when footsteps approached behind me. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Ryan's cologne, that same woody scent he'd worn throughout our relationship, announced him before he spoke. Megan, we need to talk. I turned slowly, keeping my expression neutral. Ryan looked different. Harder somehow, with an edge of desperation in his eyes that hadn't been there before. His 2 Volkov associates stood at the corridor entrance, blocking any exit back to the ballroom. "We have nothing to talk about, Ryan. Stay away from me. I'm trying to help you." He moved closer, and every instinct screamed at me to retreat. But I held my ground, remembering Anthony's training. "These people you're involved with, the Bellinis, they're dangerous. I can get you out, protect you. The Volkovs will provide security, a new identity, everything you need." "You mean the Volkovs want to use me as leverage against Christopher?" "I'm not an idiot, Ryan." His expression shifted, the false concern dropping away to reveal cold calculation. "This would be easier if you cooperated. The Volkovs are offering Bellini a deal. Territory concessions in exchange for you, unharmed. But if you don't come willingly, things get complicated. I'm not going anywhere with you." Ryan's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with bruising force. That wasn't a request. The self-defense training kicked in automatically. I twisted my wrist using the technique Anthony had drilled into me hundreds of times, breaking Ryan's grip and creating distance in one fluid motion. "Don't touch me." One of the Volkov associates moved forward, but I'd already positioned myself with my back to the wall, maximizing visibility while minimizing attack angles. "Exactly as trained. You really think you can fight us?" Ryan's voice carried genuine confusion. "There are 3 of us, Megan. Be smart." "I am being smart. I'm being recorded. Every word you've said about kidnapping me, about the Volkov deal, about forcing me to cooperate, it's all being captured." I touched the pendant at my throat. "So, you can try to grab me, but you'll be doing it on camera with witnesses positioned throughout this corridor." Ryan's face went pale as he processed my words. He looked at his Volkov companions, seeing their similar realization. They'd walked directly into a trap. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Look around, Ryan." "Really look. The waitress at the service station, the maintenance worker at the end of the hall, the security guard who just passed. How many of them do you think work for Christopher?" The Volkov associates were already backing toward the ballroom entrance, recognizing the tactical error. But Anthony and 4 other men blocked their escape, appearing from positions that had seemed empty seconds before. "You should have left me alone," I said to Ryan. "You should have accepted that we were over, that I'd moved on. Instead, you tried to drug me, stalked me, and conspired to kidnap me. There are consequences for those choices." Ryan lunged at me, a last desperate attempt to grab his bargaining chip. But I was ready. I sidestepped, using his momentum to send him stumbling past me. Before he could recover, Anthony had him face down on the marble floor, wrists secured with zip ties. The 2 Volkov associates surrendered without fight, recognizing they were outmaneuvered. Christopher appeared at my side, his eyes scanning me for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. It worked exactly like we planned. You were magnificent." He pulled me close, and I felt him shaking slightly. Terrifying and magnificent. Additional security escorted Ryan and the Volkov men out through a service entrance. Later, Christopher would tell me that 6 more Volkov operatives positioned around the venue's exterior had also been captured simultaneously. The entire operation had been neutralized in under 5 minutes. The gala continued, most guests unaware of what had transpired in the corridor. I returned to the ballroom on Christopher's arm, and we finished the evening as planned. But everything had changed. The threat that had loomed over us for weeks was finally, definitively over. The aftermath of the gala unfolded in ways I hadn't anticipated. Christopher's team transported Ryan and the captured Volkov operatives to what he called a secure facility, which I understood to mean somewhere I shouldn't ask too many questions about. The recordings from that night, my pendant microphone, and the security cameras positioned throughout the corridor provided undeniable evidence of conspiracy to kidnap, extortion, and a dozen other charges that would keep Ryan in prison for years. I should have felt relief. The threat was neutralized, Ryan was in custody, and I could finally breathe without constantly checking over my shoulder. Instead, I felt unsettled, like the other shoe hadn't dropped yet. It took 3 days for that shoe to fall. Christopher arrived at the penthouse late Wednesday evening, his expression darker than I'd seen since the night we met. Anthony accompanied him, along with 2 other men whose faces I recognized from Christopher's inner circle but whose names I'd never learned. "We need to talk," Christopher said, loosening his tie with movements that betrayed his tension. "The Volkovs have made contact." My stomach tightened. What kind of contact? Their regional leader, Dmitry Volkov, has requested a meeting. He wants to negotiate the release of his men and discuss terms for avoiding escalation. Escalation meaning what? War. Open conflict between our organizations. Christopher poured himself a drink, something he rarely did at home. Dmitry is threatening retaliation if we don't release his operatives and agree to territorial concessions. I processed this, anger building alongside fear. So he's demanding you give up what's yours because his people got caught trying to kidnap me? That's the essence of it, yes. And you're considering it? Christopher's expression hardened. I'm considering meeting with him to end this permanently. We have leverage, evidence that could destroy the Volkov operations in this region. But leverage only works if you're willing to use it. Anthony spoke up, his voice measured. Dmitry has agreed to neutral territory, mediated by respected third parties. It's as safe as these meetings get. When? I asked. Tomorrow night. An empty warehouse in Red Hook. Mediators from the Greco family supervising. They have no stake in either side, which makes them trusted arbitrators. Something in Christopher's tone told me he was leaving out crucial information. You're going alone? I'm taking Anthony and a security detail. But not me. Absolutely not you. This is dangerous, Megan. These negotiations can turn violent without warning. The old patterns tried to assert themselves. Christopher making decisions about my safety without my input. Controlling the situation because he thought he knew best. But this wasn't Ryan's manipulation. This was Christopher genuinely trying to protect me. The difference mattered. But so did my autonomy. I'm going with you. No, Christopher, I'm the reason for this conflict. My presence at that meeting sends a message that I'm not a pawn to be negotiated over, that I'm strong enough to face the people who tried to hurt me. Your presence also makes you a target. If things go wrong, if Dmitry decides to grab you during the meeting itself, we'd be walking you directly into danger. Then make sure things don't go wrong. I moved to stand in front of him, forcing him to look at me directly. You've spent weeks teaching me to be strong, to defend myself, to face threats head-on. Don't undermine that by hiding me away when it actually matters. Anthony cleared his throat diplomatically. She has a point. Dmitry expects you to leave her behind, protected and hidden. Bringing her shows confidence, shows he didn't intimidate you into changing your behavior. Christopher looked between us, clearly torn. If I agree to this, you follow every security protocol without question. You stay within arm's reach of me or Anthony at all times. And if I tell you to leave, you leave immediately. No arguments, no hesitation. Agreed. He pulled me close, his arms tight around me. If anything happens to you because I allowed this, I'll never forgive myself. Nothing will happen. We're walking in with all the power. That night, I called Jessica to explain the situation. Her reaction was predictably negative. You're going to confront Russian mobsters in a warehouse? Her voice pitched higher with each word. Megan, this is insane. Let Christopher handle it. I can't sit home wondering what's happening while my life is being negotiated. I need to be there, Jess. I need to see this through. She was quiet for a long moment. Then I'm your emergency contact. You keep your phone on, I track your location, and if I don't hear from you by midnight, I'm calling every authority I can think of. Deal. But you're not coming anywhere near Red Hook. Promise me. I promise. But you promise me you'll come home safe. I will. I have Christopher and an entire security team. Nothing's going to happen. The warehouse Dmitry had chosen for our meeting was exactly what I expected from crime movies. All exposed brick and rusted metal, lit by harsh industrial lights that cast dramatic shadows. 2 black SUVs were already parked outside when we arrived, along with a single sedan that Anthony identified as belonging to the Greco family mediators. Christopher's hand found mine as we exited our vehicle. Last chance to change your mind. Not changing my mind. I wasn't here because I craved danger, or because I didn't understand what this meeting could cost us. We'd gone over every contingency, built layers of protection, rehearsed until my responses felt like muscle memory. Hiding had nearly broken me once. Walking into this warehouse on my own terms felt less like recklessness and more like the only way forward. The interior of the warehouse was surprisingly organized. A single table sat in the center of the vast empty space, chairs arranged on either side. 2 older men in expensive suits stood near the table, the Greco-mediators, their expressions professionally neutral. And on the far side sat Dmitry Volkov. He was younger than I expected, perhaps 40, with the kind of cold handsomeness that probably made him dangerously attractive to people who didn't know what he was. His eyes, pale blue and calculating, tracked our approach with predatory focus. "Christopher Bellini," Dmitry said, his English carrying a thick Russian accent. "Thank you for coming, and you brought your woman. How touching." The dismissiveness in his tone set my teeth on edge, but Christopher's hand squeezed mine gently, a reminder to stay calm. "Dmitry, let's dispense with pleasantries. You requested this meeting. State your terms." We sat, Christopher and I on one side with Anthony standing behind us, Dmitry flanked by 2 men who radiated barely contained violence. "My terms are simple," Dmitry began. "You release my men, drop all charges, and we pretend this unfortunate incident never happened. In exchange, I won't retaliate for the assault on my operatives. Those are demands, not terms. And they're rejected." Dmitry's expression darkened. "You're in no position to reject anything. I have resources you can't imagine, connections that extend far beyond this city. Starting a war with the Volkov family would be, how do you say, career suicide. Your resources didn't prevent your operation from failing spectacularly." Christopher's voice remained calm, controlled. "Your men walked into a trap, attempted kidnapping in front of witnesses, and are currently facing federal charges. You're the one with no position to negotiate from, because you got lucky. Because your woman," Dmitry's gaze slid to me with open contempt, "happened to be smart enough to wear a wire. Such cleverness for someone so ordinary. The insult was designed to provoke, to make Christopher lose his composure. Instead, I leaned forward, meeting Dmitry's cold eyes directly. Ordinary women don't usually outsmart entire Volkov operations, do they? Maybe that says more about the quality of your people than about me." Dmitry's expression flickered with surprise. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to speak. "You brought her to speak for you now, Christopher? How far the Bellini family has fallen." "I speak for myself," I said, before Christopher could respond. "And I'm curious, Dmitry. Is drugging women and using pathetic men like Ryan Cooper the standard Volkov strategy? Because if that represents your organization's capabilities, I understand why you're so desperate to negotiate. You can't afford for people to know how badly you failed." One of Dmitry's men moved forward aggressively, but the Greco-mediator raised a hand. Everyone remained seated. "Ms. Turner is well within her rights to defend herself verbally." Dmitry's jaw clenched, his pale eyes boring into me with hatred. "You have courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Christopher, control your woman before she says something that gets her hurt." "My woman doesn't need controlling." Christopher's voice dropped dangerously low. "And threatening her in my presence is the kind of mistake you don't recover from." The tension in the warehouse thickened to the point of suffocation. Anthony's hand moved subtly inside his jacket. Dmitry's men mirrored the gesture. The Greco-mediators watched with the wariness of people who'd seen negotiations turn violent before. "Enough posturing," Christopher said, pulling a tablet from his briefcase and sliding it across the table. "These are the recordings from the charity gala. Audio and video of your men attempting kidnapping, discussing territorial demands, admitting to bribing public officials. The next file contains documentation of 17 separate money laundering operations your organization runs through legitimate businesses in this city. The final file is a list of federal agents who'd very much like to see this information." Dmitry didn't touch the tablet, but his expression confirmed he understood the implications. "Here are my terms," Christopher continued. "Your people leave my territory completely. That includes all business operations, all personnel, all claims to disputed areas. You take Ryan Cooper with you, ensure he never returns to New York, and make certain he understands that any attempt to contact Megan results in his immediate execution. In exchange, this evidence stays private, locked away. never seeing the light of day. You're demanding we abandon millions in revenue. I'm offering you the opportunity to avoid federal prison and rival families smelling your weakness. This evidence doesn't just interest American authorities, Dmitry. How do you think your superiors in Moscow would react to learning their American operations are compromised? How long before the Bratva decides you're a liability? The threat was clear. Christopher wasn't just threatening Dmitry's freedom, he was threatening his life within his own organization. And if I refuse? Dmitry's voice had lost its arrogant edge. Then this meeting ends. The files go to their respective recipients, and we deal with the consequences. Your men stay in custody, your operations collapse under federal scrutiny, and you spend what's left of your career explaining to very dangerous people how you let one ordinary woman destroy years of careful planning. I watched Dmitry process his options, seeing the moment he realized he had none. Christopher held all the leverage, all the power. This meeting was never a negotiation. It was Christopher offering terms of surrender dressed as compromise. There will be a treaty, one of the Greco mediators said, producing documents. Signed by both parties, witnessed by neutral arbitrators. It ensures the terms are honored, and violations result in collective action from other families. This is binding, Dmitry. Dmitry looked at the papers, at Christopher, at me. Hatred burned in his pale eyes, but underneath it was something more practical. Survival instinct. Fine. We accept your terms. He signed the papers with aggressive strokes. But understand this, Bellini. Today you won. But circumstances change. Power shifts. Don't be surprised if our paths cross again under different conditions. If they do, I'll be ready, just as I was this time. The meeting concluded with formal efficiency. Documents signed, copies distributed, everyone aware that a line had been drawn. As we left the warehouse, I felt Christopher's entire body relax slightly, tension releasing after hours of controlled restraint. You were incredible in there, he said, once we were safely in the car. The way you stood up to Dmitry, refused to be intimidated. I learned from watching you. Besides, he needed to understand I'm not weak just because I'm not violent. In that moment, watching him hold the line for both his territory and my safety, I understood this had never been just about business for him. It was about a promise he'd made to a sister the world hadn't protected in time, and about making sure no one else in his orbit ever paid that price again. Anthony glanced at us through the rearview mirror. The Volkovs will honor the treaty. They can't afford not to with the Grecos as witnesses. It's over. Truly over. Later, I learned that Christopher's legal team had quietly funneled just enough of the evidence to a federal contact to keep the Volkovs under a microscope without exposing the full extent of his leverage. The rest stayed locked away as insurance, a weapon he hoped he'd never have to use. I pulled out my phone and texted Jessica. Safe, coming home. All good. Her response was immediate. Thank God. Wine tomorrow. You're buying. Christopher pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my temple. No more warehouses. No more negotiations with criminals. I want boring from now on. Boring sounds perfect. 3 months had passed since the warehouse meeting with Dmitry Volkov, and life had settled into a rhythm I never could have anticipated when I first walked into that rainy bar months ago. I was standing in the kitchen of Christopher's penthouse, our penthouse now, watching the city wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows, while coffee brewed behind me. The space no longer felt like Christopher's territory that I was occupying. My design books filled the shelves alongside his business texts. My ridiculous collection of coffee mugs cluttered the cabinet next to his expensive espresso cups. My art supplies had taken over the spare bedroom he'd converted into a studio for me. We'd merged our lives in ways that felt natural rather than forced. Partnership instead of possession. Sometimes, when I caught him watching me across a crowded room or from the doorway of my studio, there was a flicker of something old in his eyes. A shadow that didn't belong to us. I knew it was the memory of the sister he'd lost long before I ever walked into that bar, and I understood that loving me was, in its own quiet way, part of how he kept his promise to her now. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia at Crawford Design Agency. Client loved the final mock-ups. They want you for the next 3 properties. Sending contract today. I smiled, setting the phone down to pour coffee. My freelance work had exploded in the past few months. partially thanks to connections Christopher had facilitated but maintained entirely through my own skill. The hotel branding project had led to restaurant concepts, which led to a boutique retail chain, which led to architectural firms wanting someone who understood luxury markets. My portfolio was stronger than it had ever been, and I'd raised my rates twice. Good news? Christopher emerged from the bedroom, already dressed for the day in charcoal slacks and a white dress shirt, tie not yet knotted. Crawford wants me for 3 more properties. That's $60,000 in contracts over the next 4 months. He crossed to me, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind and pressing a kiss to my shoulder. I'm proud of you. You've built something real. We both have. I turned in his arms. Speaking of which, I need to review the quarterly reports for Bella Nada before the partner meeting tomorrow. Christopher had insisted on making me a minority partner in the restaurant 6 weeks ago, investing my share as recognition of how much I'd contributed to its success. The front-of-house operations ran more smoothly, reservations had increased by 30%, and our VIP clientele had expanded significantly. I'd earned my stake, but it still felt surreal to own part of something so established. The numbers are strong. Marco's new menu is bringing in food critics, and your reservation system has eliminated the chaos we used to deal with on weekends. Christopher's hand traced patterns on my lower back. You're good at this, Megan. Building things, creating order from chaos. I learned from watching you. He laughed softly. I mostly just threaten people until they cooperate. You actually inspire them to do better work. We fell into our morning routine, comfortable and domestic in ways that would have seemed impossible months ago. Christopher reviewed documents at the dining table while I finalized design mock-ups on my laptop. We existed in the same space without needing constant interaction, the security of knowing the other person was close. My phone rang just as I was saving my final file. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. Are we still on for lunch? She asked when I answered. Because I have news, and I need your face-to-face reaction. I'm free at 1. Meet at that Italian place near the hospital? Perfect. And Meg? Wear something nice. This is celebration-worthy news. She hung up before I could ask what we were celebrating, leaving me curious and slightly concerned. Christopher looked up from his papers. Jessica? She has news. Celebration-worthy, apparently. Anthony's been suspiciously happy lately. I'm guessing it's related. I blinked. Wait. Do you think he's going to propose? I think he already bought the ring. He asked for my blessing 2 weeks ago. And you didn't tell me? It wasn't my news to share. But yes, I gave my blessing. Anthony's a good man, and Jessica makes him better. Christopher's expression softened. She's also been good for you through all of this. I'm glad she's staying in your life. The sentiment touched me more than he probably realized. Christopher had never tried to isolate me from friends, or demand I choose between him and the relationships I'd had before. He encouraged my independence, supported my career, and genuinely liked the people I cared about. The contrast with Ryan couldn't have been starker. At 1 o'clock, I walked into the restaurant to find Jessica already seated, practically vibrating with excitement. The moment I sat down, she thrust her left hand across the table. He proposed last night. The ring was beautiful, elegant without being ostentatious, exactly what Jessica would have chosen for herself. Oh my God, Jess, congratulations. Can you believe it? Me, marrying a guy who works for the mob. My mother is going to have a stroke, but she was beaming, happier than I'd seen her in years. He was so nervous, Meg. This man who faces down criminals without flinching was shaking when he got down on one knee. How did he propose? We were at his apartment. Nothing fancy, just having dinner. And he said he'd been thinking about how short life is, how unpredictable everything can be, and how he didn't want to waste any more time not being married to me. She wiped at her eyes. It was perfect. No big production, no pressure, just honest and real. We spent lunch planning, Jessica talking through wedding ideas while I took mental notes about designs she responded to. By the time we finished, I'd committed to designing all her wedding stationery, her one request being that I make it personal, rather than traditionally formal. So when's Christopher going to propose? Jessica asked as we were leaving. You two are basically married already. You live together, work together, navigate criminal politics together. I don't know if marriage is something he wants. His world is complicated enough without adding legal connections that could be used against him. That man is completely in love with you. Trust me. He's thinking about it. I wanted to believe her, but I also knew the realities of Christopher's life. Marriage meant legal vulnerabilities, paper trails that enemies could exploit. It meant making me an even bigger target than I already was. Part of me had accepted that what we had might be the extent of what was possible. That evening, Christopher came home earlier than usual, finding me in my studio working on Jessica's wedding invitation concepts. "Get dressed," he said from the doorway. "Something nice but comfortable. I want to take you somewhere." "Where are we going?" "It's a surprise. Trust me." An hour later, we pulled up outside the Sapphire Lounge, the bar where everything had started. I hadn't been back since that rainy night when Ryan had tried to drug me, when Christopher had forced him to drink his own poison, when my entire life had changed course. "Why are we here?" I asked as Christopher opened my car door. "You'll see." The bar looked different, updated. The exterior had been repainted, new lighting installed. The overall aesthetic elevated while maintaining the character that had made it distinctive. Christopher produced a key, unlocking the front door and gesturing for me to enter. Inside, the changes were even more apparent. New furniture, refinished floors, updated lighting that made the space feel both modern and timeless. But the layout remained the same. That corner booth where Christopher had been conducting business still positioned with sightlines to all entrances. "It's beautiful," I said, running my hand along the polished bar. "When did they renovate?" "About 6 weeks ago. After I bought it." I turned to stare at him. "You bought the Sapphire Lounge?" "The previous owner wanted to retire. I made him an offer he couldn't refuse." Christopher moved closer, his expression unreadable. "I wanted the place where I met you, where I realized my life was about to change, to be ours. A reminder of where we started." "Christopher, this is too much. You didn't have to buy an entire bar just because of sentimental value. It's not just sentiment. It's investment, legacy." He took my hands in his. "Megan, 3 months ago we were preparing to confront the Volkovs, both of us uncertain whether we'd survive. Before that, we were navigating how to be together despite all the complications. And before that, we were strangers in a crowded bar, drawn together by circumstances that should have been traumatic, but became transformative." My heart started racing, recognizing the weight in his voice. "You've changed everything about my life. The way I think about protection, about power, about what actually matters. You've made me want things I'd given up on, futures I thought weren't possible for someone like me." He reached into his jacket pocket, and when his hand emerged, it held a small velvet box. "Marry me, Megan. Not because I want to possess you or control you, but because I want to build a life with you as my equal partner. In business, in this complicated world we navigate, in everything." He opened the box, revealing a ring that took my breath away. Not ostentatiously large, but perfectly cut, elegant and strong. Exactly what I would have chosen for myself if I'd had the courage to imagine this moment. I know my world is dangerous. I know being married to me means accepting risks that most people never have to consider. But I also know that you're the bravest person I've ever met, and I want to spend the rest of my life worthy of that bravery. Tears blurred my vision. "You're asking me to marry you in the bar where you saved me from my abusive ex by making him drink his own roofied cocktail. That's possibly the least romantic proposal location imaginable. Or the most honest. This is where we began, where you were at your most vulnerable, and I was at my most protective, where we both made choices that led us here." He took the ring from the box, holding it ready. "I'm not offering you a fairy tale, Megan. I'm offering you reality. Partnership with someone who will fight for you, protect you, but also respect your autonomy and celebrate your strength. So, what do you say? Will you marry me?" I thought about the woman I'd been that rainy night, trying to celebrate a job interview while my ex-boyfriend plotted to assault me. I thought about how Christopher had intervened without being asked, had offered protection without demanding submission, had seen strength in me when I'd forgotten it existed. I thought about the life we'd built together, the career I'd developed, the independence I'd maintained even while falling deeply in love with a man whose world operated by rules most people never encountered. I thought about Jessica marrying Anthony, about building families from unconventional circumstances. "Yes," I said, my voice steady despite the tears. "I'll marry you." Christopher slipped the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly, like everything about us that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. He pulled me close, kissing me with the intensity of someone who'd been holding back and finally had permission to stop. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I laughed through my tears. "Jessica's going to lose her mind. She asked me this afternoon when you were going to propose, and I told her it probably wouldn't happen. Anthony told her to ask you that. We coordinated this proposal down to the hour." Christopher traced my jawline with his thumb. "Your friend is remarkably good at keeping secrets when properly motivated. You planned this with my best friend. I wanted to make sure someone you trusted thought it was a good idea." Jessica interrogated me for 2 hours about my intentions, my finances, my criminal activities, and my ability to make you happy long term. It was more thorough than some federal investigations I've been subjected to. The image of Jessica grilling Christopher about his worthiness as a husband made me laugh outright. "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that I'm completely in love with you, that I'll protect you with everything I have, and that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you." His expression turned serious. "And that if I ever hurt you or make you feel controlled the way Ryan did, she has my permission to kill me herself. She'd probably enjoy that too much." We stood in the empty bar for a long time, holding each other in the space where our story had begun. Outside, the city continued its perpetual motion. People living their ordinary lives unaware of the complicated, dangerous, beautiful world Christopher and I inhabited. I thought about trajectory, about how one terrible night had led to this moment, how Ryan's attempt to hurt me had instead delivered me to someone who saw strength where Ryan had seen weakness, how running from control had led me to partnership, how fear had transformed into courage. This wasn't the life I'd imagined when I moved to New York with dreams of becoming a designer. It was better, stranger, more real. I'd become someone I actually liked, someone strong and capable and unafraid. I'd built a career, earned respect, learned to navigate a world most people only saw in movies. And I'd found Christopher, a man whose darkness complemented my light, whose protection enhanced rather than diminished my autonomy, whose love made me braver instead of smaller. "What are you thinking?" Christopher asked, his arms still wrapped around me. "I'm thinking about that woman who walked into this bar months ago, trying so hard to celebrate an interview while her ex stalked her. If I could go back and tell her what her life would become, she wouldn't believe it. Would she be happy about it? She'd be terrified, but she'd also be hopeful, maybe for the first time in years." I looked up at him. "Thank you for seeing me that night, for noticing I needed help before I even knew how much danger I was in. Thank you for being brave enough to trust me despite every reasonable instinct telling you not to." He kissed my forehead. "We should call Jessica, tell her the good news before Anthony does. Can we have a few more minutes here first? Just us in this space, before we share it with everyone else? We can have as long as you want." So we stayed, wrapped around each other in the bar where we'd met, where our complicated, beautiful story had begun. Tomorrow we'd start planning a wedding, navigating the logistics of marrying into a crime family, managing the reactions of people who wouldn't understand. But tonight, we just existed in this moment. Two people who'd found each other against improbable odds and decided to build something permanent from it. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Jessica. "Well?" I pulled it out, typed a quick response. "He proposed." I said yes. Her reply came instantly. "Finally. Dinner tomorrow, all 4 of us. I want details." Christopher read over my shoulder and smiled. "Anthony's going to be insufferable about being right." What was he right about? He bet me 3 months ago that we'd be engaged before Christmas. I told him it was too soon. "You were planning this for 3 months?" "I was planning this from the moment you walked into that warehouse to confront Dmitry Volkov despite every tactical reason not to. I knew then that you were it for me." His amber eyes held mine. "You're my partner, Megan. In every sense of the word. I want to make that official." Standing in that bar, wearing his ring, wrapped in his arms, I felt the final pieces of my new life click into place. This was home. Not the luxury penthouse or the successful restaurant, or even the thriving design career. This, us, the partnership we'd built from chaos and danger and unexpected connection. I'd escaped one man who tried to control me and found another who celebrated my strength. I'd left behind a life that made me small and built one that made me powerful. And somehow, in the middle of navigating organized crime and territorial disputes and all the darkness that came with Christopher's world, I'd found the truest version of myself. Not bad for a woman who'd just wanted to celebrate a job interview in peace. The end.